Canada and Germany reached a new landmark energy deal this week. German energy company Ksi will buy 1 million tons of LNG a year from Canada through BC's Ksi Lisims project.
This contract represents the first agreement that we see long-term, low-carbon LNG from Canada being shipped to our allies in Europe. A clear example of how we can not only support global energy security, reduce reliance on coercive actors like Russia, advance Indigenous leadership and equity, but also deliver on our promise to Canadians to diversify and expand our trade.
I'm joined now by Germany's ambassador to Canada, Tjorven Bellmann. Nice to see you. Thanks for coming on, Ambassador.
Thanks for having me.
So the German state-owned Ksi, I guess it is, SEFE, has brokered what could be really a landmark deal with BC LNG, a consequential deal at the very least. Ksi Lisims is going to sell up to 1 million metric tons of liquefied natural gas to this German-owned company. Why did the Germans go with Canada? Why are they interested in doing business with BC?
Well, we are still very interested in diversifying our energy relationships. And of course, Canada has a lot to offer, what is interesting for us. So we are hugely excited about this deal. It's at the moment a head of agreements or a non-binding MOU because first the investment decisions in Ksi Lisims have to be finalized, but we hope to see a more binding contract later in the year.
You may remember we've been talking about this before. Nearly 4 years ago, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said that there was no business case, right, to build an LNG export terminal to send liquefied natural gas from Canada to Germany to Europe. And now you've brokered a deal that's potentially worth billions of dollars over the next 20 years if all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, as you say. Do you wish that Canada had moved faster to develop our natural resources? Do you think Justin Trudeau was wrong?
I don't think looking back makes a lot of sense. And to be fair, whether that LNG actually goes to Europe or is swapped on the international market still will have to be seen, both if is possible, because the agreement is tailored that way that that the company will decide about that. I think what's important now is that we are very impressed by the speed of development of the current government. There are more talks going on, and you know, we're up for business, you're up for business.
You might have heard Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre was speaking about this deal this week, and he says, to your point, there may be swaps, but he said that there needs to be a geography 101 lesson for this federal government because Germany and BC are so far apart. There's a huge difference in distance, obviously, between BC and maybe some other spots that Germany could get its LNG. He sort of seemed to question whether this is a viable deal, if LNG will ever flow from Canada to Germany, mentioning the stalled hydrogen deal that Justin Trudeau brokered with Chancellor Scholz some years ago. What do you say to the naysayers? Is this really something that can happen? Do you think that it's possible that we will see LNG flow from BC to Germany? Is Mr. Poilievre wrong about this?
So we will definitely see benefits for German customers out of this deal, whether the LNG goes directly to Germany or whether it's swapped and goes to Asia and then their LNG goes to us, doesn't really matter for the customer, right? I mean, the customer wants to have the end result. So this is why we're excited. There's other options possibly in the future. You know that on the East Coast we have projects in the making in Nova Scotia and other provinces. There might be future prospects through the north. We will see. I can only say that for my government, we are still interested in diversifying. And by the way, this is not the first LNG deal. Uniper last year struck a deal with Tourmaline, which is LNG that goes through Louisiana to Germany. So there are different options. The window for offtake and longer-term offtake is still there. It's not going to be there forever, but it is still there. And so let's, get to action and do the most of it.
So Ksi Lisims now, is there, you mentioned the Tourmaline deal, is there potential for more? Is Germany still wanting to get more LNG out of Canada?
Yes, for sure. I mean, there are other projects in the pipeline. There are ongoing talks. I'm not at liberty to talk about them in public now, but for sure, at the moment, the interest is definitely still there. And Canadian LNG, especially this project, has a very low carbon footprint, which is very attractive to European customers.
Let's talk about submarines. Of course, Canada has to replace, your other favorite topic, Canada has to replace its aging Victoria-class subs, right? And there's obviously this big procurement process underway now to select what will replace the subs we have now. There's kind of a battle underway between the Koreans and Germany and Norway on the other side. The Prime Minister said this week he anticipates the government will make a decision sometime by the end of June. So this is something that's happening pretty quickly. Tell me why you think the federal government should pick the German-made Type 212 CD submarine over the Korean one. Give me your elevator pitch as to why this is the best project.
Let's say, I think, both boats are good. There's no question. The South Koreans obviously are very capable of building good submarines. They learn from the best, so I don't want to say any negative about that. I think our proposal is a different one because it's a proposal for a trilateral partnership on eye level. 3 NATO allies bound by a defense treaty that an attack on one is an attack on all. A structure whereby any future decision would be taken together in a joint project office. And a fleet that would be twice the size than if only Canada went it alone. So to have a common fleet of 24 submarines of the same type as part of NATO, that's real power. And of course, it creates a lot of economies of scale, and there are other allies potentially also interested. We would also aim to have the same maintenance facilities on both coasts of Canada and in Norway and in Germany, which again creates a lot of economies of scale. The economic package is huge, over 650,000 job years, which is really quite a lot, and over 86 billion Canadian dollars of GDP output and 167 billion Canadian dollars of economic value. It's a proposal that has a heavy government element to it. So there is a lot of industry in there, reaching really from seabed to space, torpedoes, anti-torpedo torpedoes, but also other things like carbon capture, energy, critical minerals, technology, AI. I mean, it's really very vast, but there's a lot of direct German government office as well in terms of military procurement or other areas where we are willing to invest in. In the end, for us, this is about a strategic partnership across the board that would, take the bilateral relationship to a new level. And of course, the companies are different. I mean, TKMS provides for 70% of NATO's conventional submarine fleet. They've exported for decades. They are very experienced in maintenance and all these things you only learn after many years in the business, and have customers also in the Pacific like Singapore or in the Middle East like Israel, and in the future India.
Yeah, I mean, those economic benefits you spoke about, those are really important to the Prime Minister, to this government, right? He essentially said that that's what will, make the decision for this government, whatever the Koreans offer versus whatever the Germans offer. You mentioned all the benefits of what could come from the German deal. The Koreans are also suggesting there will be potentially tens of thousands of jobs. They're going to buy steel from Algoma, which has been hard hit by the tariffs in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. But one other thing that's interesting is Industry Minister Melanie Joly has suggested that maybe they're going to try and lure a German auto manufacturer or a Korean one, what have you, depending on how the sub deal goes. Is that something that you've heard about? Is there rumblings about this? Is there a possibility of a German automaker setting up shop in Canada, more than they already do? We know Volkswagen's on the way. Is there the possibility of a German automaker setting up shop in Canada and providing jobs on that front if this government buys German subs?
So I can't speak for the German automakers, who are independent companies and make their own business decision. Of course, the industry is already heavily here. You mentioned PowerCo. There's more to come on the battery front. But also, just the selling, I think it's 15,000 jobs in the country. So it's a very significant industry already that German automakers provide here for Canadians and jobs here for Canadians. Whether there will be additional investments will depend on the overall, business and economic conditions. And there is a lot that Canada has to offer, but there's also a lot of uncertainty around the fact what the tariffs will be in the future, given that the CUSMA revision isn't finalized yet. So, all these factors will will be part of decisions. But in the end, it's independent decisions of car companies and not of the German government.
There's certainly chatter about it, though, right? Is it fair to say?
I mean, there are talks for sure, but I really can't speak for the companies.
Yeah, fair enough. Let's leave it there. Thank you so much, Ambassador Bellmann, Germany's ambassador to Canada. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me.